What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Vintage and Stuff podcast. Today is another episode of the history of the vintage clothing business with your favorite guest, my dad, David Heifetz, the Don, the Zip, aka, he tells his other nickname, and I think it's the Boner Bro or something random. Anyway, that's on the episode. And yeah, today we talk about the rag barrier mainly, which is a period after Woodstock, a period after he closed the stores at the beach in New Hampshire. This was in Manchester, New Hampshire, I believe. And also we talk about the rag machine, his first wholesale vintage venture. And that's right before he moves to Toronto. So yeah, we are on episode 5 of History of the Vintage Clothing Business with Dave Heifetz. It's a good one. If you haven't seen or listened to the first 4 episodes, go check those out. Available on the iTunes channel or YouTube. And yes, it's a rad episode. We probably tell you a few stories that we've already told you, but you know, I'm going senile too in my ripe old age of 40. That's just the way it is. So if it's redundant, too bad. Hope you enjoy this episode. As far as the vintage news goes today, shout out Kirby, shout out Dead Union, crushing it. He got MVP on the Chris's Virtual Fleece, so 2 weeks in a row, amazing sets. I just got word today that round 2 is entering the vintage live space, which is kind of new because they haven't touched that the whole time through COVID. They haven't gone live. They haven't done any live events. They haven't done any live selling, but this week they're starting up live selling. I think tomorrow or maybe tonight. I don't even know. This is a Monday, but this probably won't come out on a Monday. So that information is redundant. But they are starting when you hear this. They'll be up and running 3 p.m. every weekday. So they're not just coming out into the live space. They're coming out swinging every day. So yeah, check that out. I don't know what it's going to be like because it hasn't started yet. What else? You can support the Patreon, you know. This show is funded by you guys. Big shout out to my patrons. I'm going to give some shout outs here. I have Corey Bosaki. Big thank you to Corey. I have Glenna with no last name. Glenna May, I believe, actually. I have Reed Dykstra. Thank you, Reed. I have John Lowry. Thank you, John Lowry. I have Carson Elkenberry. Thank you. John Labori. Thank you. No, sorry, Tony Labori. Got that totally wrong. Tony Labori. Thank you. I have Sam J. I have Chris Bailey, Chris Higdon, Benjamin Cartwright, Travis Bata, David Harris. Listen, I am so thankful for your support. If you guys want to join the patrons, you definitely can. Go check out the link below and sign up. I'm posting exclusive content on there. All the good, juicy stuff is there. Plus, you get a shout out on the podcast, and you can feel good about supporting your favorite show. So that's it. F as in Frank, vintage.com. As always, get 30% off with VTG and stuff. Code VTG and stuff. Without further ado, your favorite vintage and stuff guest, David Heifetz, over Zoom because I haven't been able to see my dad in a minute. And that's just the way it is. Hopefully we'll be doing episodes where we can hug each other soon once again. Enjoy. Thank you for tuning in. Dave Heifetz is back. The Don.
The Don.
The Don Father.
Yes, sir.
Can
you hear me?
The Ragmonger. Yes, I can hear you. What other names? The Zip Man. What other nicknames you got?
That's it, man. King Boner.
King Boner.
Yeah.
The
King Boner.
Not to be confused with Boner Champ from Office.
Yeah.
From The Office.
King Boner.
King Boner.
When I was a kid in grammar school, we had a gang called the Boner Boys, and I was King Boner.
Boner Boys. We don't want to know what went on at the clubhouse.
We didn't have a clubhouse. We used to go over to Jay's house after work because mom and dad both worked. He was a single kid, and school got out around 3, so we'd go out and hang out in his backyard. I'll never forget, the biggest thing in the world was I had a fight with a guy named Alan Azzi, who was one of my best friends. And it was such a big deal. We were going to fight. So everybody went over to Jay's after work. There were like 20 people there. We had a fight.
Oh, so like you guys planned it out. It's like, okay, everybody, go to Jay's after school. Dave's going to fight.
Dave and Alan are going to work it out, baby.
Work it out with the fists.
Yeah.
Let's go. So what happened in the fight? Did he smoke him good?
We both hurt each other a little, but, we were best friends, pretty much. He ended up dead. He became a criminal. He was the coolest guy in high school. Can you imagine a guy in high school wearing a sport coat and an ascot every day to school?
Well, I can picture it, yeah.
He was so cool, man.
Explain to us what an ascot even is, because I don't even think people know what that is.
It was a button-down shirt with like a little scarf here, and every day he'd wear a different little silk scarf and a tweed coat. I mean, Alan was cool, man.
What kind of criminal did he become?
He became a drug dealer, and his family.
He got killed.
And he got shot.
Damn.
I think he spent a little time in jail. A lot. Married a fabulous girl. He was at my first wedding.
That's
he was
crazy.
There with.
Speaking of death, the morbid subject of death. A acquaintance of mine died yesterday in an avalanche.
I saw that. Which one of those guys in the picture was it?
He was the guy in the gray sweatshirt, second from the left, or third from the left.
Died in an avalanche. Where?
Here in Whistler, Brandywine, where we always go snowmobiling.
Wow.
That picture was from, we went on a surf trip. That picture, his name is Dave Hinkle. Super local legend kind of guy. Really adventurous snowboarder. Always out there snowboarding in the backcountry. And just bad luck yesterday, I guess. And
was he by himself?
No, he had people with him, but they didn't get him out of the snow in time, and he passed away. And he was.
Wow.
I worked with his sister in Whistler for years, and I'm friends with a lot of his close friends. We weren't very close, but if there's any snowboarders on here, be careful out there in the backcountry. Life is fleeting. You gotta enjoy every day, because you never know when your time is up. And if there's any Whistler heads in here, sad day, because he was
legend.
Just not. I don't know about legend status, but he was very known in the community, and he's a very good guy in the community, and it's sad.
Yeah. So that's why I'm here, man. I'm not letting anything get me down.
That's good.
I shoveled the driveway today. We got a lot of snow here.
It started snowing today finally, because I told you it wasn't snowing here yet, but it started.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back. Sorry about that interlude. I just had to say R.I.P. Dave Hinkle. It was sad news I woke up to today. But anyway, back to Alan Azzi. So how many people came to watch your fight?
About 20, man. It was serious. We went at it. I had a tough time, though, man. When I was walking home from school, we used to have a patrol, right? And the patrol was always across the street from the Catholic school patrol. And I was the only Jewish kid. My dad, your grandpa, landed us in the south side of Manchester, and there were just no Jewish people there, especially in grammar school. And Blessed Sacrament Grammar School was right next to Bakersville, and we used to walk home together, and there were always 2 or 3 guys that called me a Christ killer. A guy named Seaboy Simino, what a piece of work he was. And you know what? When I got older, one of the few jobs I had, my mom was very friendly with the manager of the A&P. The A&P is like a grocery store, like a Thrifties or a Save On. Anyway, she got me a job there, being a bag boy and a stock boy. I was like 15, right? So guess who's working there?
These anti-Semite.
No, not these. The anti-Semite, C-Boy Semino. And guess who's like a year older than me? And guess who's my boss? C-Boy Semino. So he used to pick the shit out of me.
How could you fucking? Why did you take that job?
Well, Mom wanted me to do it, and I was
question.
making some money.
You got to feel sorry for that guy is just spitting what his parents told him, which is sad. In the end of the day, Christ killer. Those guys don't even know what they're talking about, and I feel sorry for those people who actually have no educational basis of what they're talking about, and they're just hateful because their parents feed them a bunch of bullshit when they're young.
Major bullshit. Anyway, I had it out with him one day after work, and after that, he never bothered me again. I didn't win, but I didn't lose. We both got a few butts and breasts.
Oh, this is the fight episode, everybody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Holy. So
yeah.
That's, you got to stand your ground. You got to fucking draw the line in the sand and say, that's enough. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough, man. So after that, it was cool. Anyway, yeah. So let's go on.
So we're back to So last episode we left off. What are we talking about today? Where are we in the timeline?
Well, we're going to go to the rag barrier. The rag barrier was kind of.
Okay, let's just before we get into it, what year was the rag barrier?
I think it was 1970.
Okay, we're into 1970. We did an episode on Woodstock. You can go listen to that. I think we're on episode potentially 5 of the history of the clothing business with Dave Heifetz. So we're already 4 episodes deep. You should go listen to those.
Really?
And now, this is episode 5. So we're on episode, and he doesn't remember. That's why we're doing this, so that he can review these later.
I knew we were.
That's why we're doing this, so we can have this out here in audio form, and we can listen back later on. So now we're hitting 1970, and we're talking about the rag barrier, which is another in the saga, which we've already talked about on other episodes. You've had like 20 stores with 20 different names.
Easy.
So here we are. Who knows what number store this is? It's got to be like store 5, 6 already. Maybe more. Probably like store 10 already. And it's called the rag barrier.
We talked about Xanadu. We talked about the farmers. We haven't talked about that yet. We talked about Xanadu.
Rag market.
No, the Xanadu. We talked about the Booksmith.
Yeah.
We talked about the University Book Co-op.
Xanadu is the one at the beach. New Hampshire Beach. Okay.
Yeah. And right after I closed Xanadu, I think what I did was I went and I opened the rag barrier.
Okay. And where?
It was in Manchester, New Hampshire, where I lived. I moved home for a little while. I don't remember why, but it might have been 69. It might have been 70. I don't remember.
Well, do you remember? Did it correspond with Woodstock?
It was after Woodstock.
Okay.
It was probably 70. Anyway, I closed Xanadu. The Booksmith was done. The Farmers Rag Mart was done. I mean, not the farmer. The Book Co-op was done. The head shop with Billy Adams was done, which was called The Grass is Greener. That was done. And so I opened up the store in Manchester. It was a great location. It was on a corner, one of the best corners in town. It was an old pharmacy that went out of business. It was fantastic. So I took it. I called it the rag barrier. I took all the used clothing and all the leftover stuff I had from the beach because I had a lot left over. It was locked. I took it to Manchester. I had a van, and I opened the rag barrier. And I hired a couple of people. Kenny Freeman. Kenny Freeman. I remember Kenny. Kenny was a local Jewish kid, kind of a hip kid, and he ran it with me. He ran it with me, Ken Friedman. And then we hired a girl. I don't remember her name, but we hired a girl because this was after I was already selling used clothing at the boutique at Xanadu. Remember, I had 3 stores. I had the head shop, I had the leather shop, and I had a clothing boutique. And in the clothing boutique, I was already selling about 35% used or redone or military and stuff like that. So, yeah, the Ragbari was cool, man. It was very, very cool.
So hit us with the New Hampshire state slogan.
Live free or die.
What does that mean to you, Dad?
Oh God, it means it was bullshit. Total bullshit. Total bullshit.
But you know, you grew up with that, so that's just that slogan they've always had. But isn't it still to this day they don't even require motorcycle helmets? Like they really do let people live a bit more free, don't they?
Well, I'm not sure if I had to wear a helmet or not. I don't remember. I had a Triumph motorcycle with the big handlebars. Boy, that was fun.
that was the fun. Best answer. Just straight bullshit. Okay, so Ragbari.
I don't know if we have more freedom in New Hampshire or not.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. It was a pretty right-wing state, pretty Republican, pretty conservative. Did not like hippies.
Did you feel free? Did you feel like the world was your oyster? Did you feel like anything was possible?
Yeah, I never felt controlled or limited. Matter of fact, when I had the head shops at the beach, I never had one problem. The biggest problem I told you about was when my brother got caught just outside of town with dope, and we had to bail him out. That was it. Yeah. I never had the police around. They respected me. They were great. They really were.
You got thrown into jail for a night because of the posters. What shop was that? That was around the Vietnam War.
Now that was up in Laconia. That was not Hampton Beach.
And that we haven't got to that story yet? That's later?
I thought we got to that story.
Oh, we probably did. I've heard that story so many times. I just don't remember now. Yeah, see, my memory's not so good either. I got the family cheat.
We did that. Yeah. Tony McManus bailed me out. But yeah, the police in Laconia were not good. But I don't blame them because they had one of the largest motorcycle rallies in the world. Not the biggest, but they had 50,000 cyclers there first weekend in July. And they had to be tough. There was a lot of Hell's Angels.
What's that rally called?
I don't know. It was just a motorcycle rally. Everybody showed up.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, and they had races.
Let's get back to the rag barrier here. So
the rag barrier. So we set it up. Kenny helped me, Kenny Feldman. And it was a very cool store, man. It did very, very well. And the thing I got the most out of the rag barrier was that I hired a girl. I don't remember her name, but she sat in the back room on a telephone with a typewriter. She found me a bunch of sources, and I went and started buying used clothing. So the rag barrier became like almost 90% used. You know,
because before that, your previous stores were mixed head shops, records, random paraphernalia, whatever, right?
Yeah, lots of different stuff. And the clothing store I had last in '69 was at least 50-60% new goods, which I bought, you know, at clothing shows. And of course I had landlubber jeans, and I started to carry Levi's and stuff like that. But after I started the rag barrier, that's when I really got into used clothing. And there was no place to buy. You know, there was no one guy anywhere that I could find except a guy in New York City called Walter Seltzer. His name was Walter Seltzer. He's dead, and he's gone. His business is gone. But he was one of the few guys that were grading specialty clothing. It wasn't all vintage, but it was specialty stuff. And I found them and I started buying from Walter Seltzer. And there was another guy named Louis Fetter. He had he's not there anymore anyway. He's dead. They're both dead. But Louis Fetter was the Jean King. Denim jackets, bib overalls, Levi's, Lee Wranglers. And he was on a wharf in Brooklyn. And then I found another guy, Jaime Kaplan. Jaime Kaplan. Oh my God. I can't believe I'm remembering this. Jaime was in Brooklyn too. And Jaime was a military surplus guy. He had the most amazing warehouse of military surplus. This was 70, early 71, rag barrier days. And yeah, so I bought a lot of Army clothes.
So I remember when I was a kid, you always were into military surplus. Why? What attracted you to military surplus?
Oh, the hippies were wearing
it. It was like your thing.
Oh, it was a big thing with hippies. It was like the anti-war thing. So you wore camo, you wore German army pants that were black, you wore field jackets that were dyed 6 colors. You know, I mentioned that my first thing was I bought from the Greek in Boston all those tan army coats, and I had a dye guy. He dyed them 10 colors, and we called them Sergeant Pepper. And that's how I got started.
So did you ever buy directly from the military?
Not the American or Canadian military. I bought from the military in Holland, and I bought from the military in Germany indirectly.
And when I was a kid, when did you go to Russia? In the early 90s or the late 80s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s. Okay, so
yeah,
you were in contacts with some military there, right?
Oh man, that's 4 periods. That was so.
Okay, we don't want to jump ahead, but we don't want to jump ahead.
That was so much fun, man.
There's some cool Russian stories we got to do. I don't even know the half of it because I was such a young kid. I just know you came back. You were there for like a month, right?
Oh yeah, twice. I went twice.
Okay. KGB. I love it. Heifetz have KGB affiliation. No, I don't want to give it too much away. No, I'm just kidding, guys. But anyway.
Oh man.
Anyway, let's go. Okay, let's get back to this military surplus in those old days. So, I think it's interesting to note because you were really big into it. There's lots of dealers out there, but then there's the way the dealers get it is they actually buy auctions from the military bases. The military bases put together. And you can find these auctions. Like some of them you have to be registered for, and only certain buyers can get in them. But you basically buy bundles. It'll be like 1,000 pounds of Army BDU pants or whatever the stuff. Like you can buy canteens and bottles, and it's not just clothing. The thing about military surplus is it's only part of the business for that is clothing. The rest of it is like hard goods, right?
Yeah, but you can bid only on the clothing stuff. But I used to buy from a German guy. I can't remember his name right now. It'll come to me. But he had a huge place. He had Jeeps. He had medical trucks. He had tanks. I mean, he had everything. And he had a huge amount of boots and canteens and field jackets and packs. And
I remember when I was a kid, you definitely had Gaylord bins full of boots. I can remember that.
Tons.
I also remember you always had canteens. You always had tons of those ammo cases, those boxes.
Yeah.
Those were a hot item, random metal box. I have a funny story about military surplus. So I don't know if you remember this, but this was maybe 7-8 years ago. Jesse and I were selling a lot of Army pants, and we were tailoring them, right? Because skinny pants were popular. So we took the BDU camo Army pants, and we just tailored the inseam so they had a better fit, right? And we had open orders for these things. I'm talking I could have sold 100,000 units if I had the stock, right? So there was a period, this was literally floating our whole company, just selling this one item. Get the pants, cut the inseam, resew it, and sell it. And so a few times I had to travel across America to go see dealers and buy army pants.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a wicked trip to North Carolina. Went to North Carolina, spent a week with this guy. His family owned a diner, so we got to eat dinner and breakfast at this family diner that is the military surplus dealer's family owned. I remember that was really cool. And I spent the whole day digging through this warehouse, just like sorting BDU pants, BDU shirts, military surplus. I also found dead stock 3D emblem shirts in this warehouse, which I don't know if you know what that is, Dad, do you?
No.
3D Emblem was a company that made Harley shirts, but nowadays in the vintage market, they're highly collectible and like very, very valuable. So I found dead stock 3D Emblem Harley Davidson shirts and military shirts in this warehouse as well, which was a huge score. And at the time, I probably bought from that guy like 4 pallets of stuff.
Wow.
Maybe more, maybe 5 pallets of stuff. Then I had another dig near Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
PA. Yeah, so I flew to Pittsburgh, and then I had to drive like 2 hours out into the country to this military dealer. And you know the type. Guy has containers in the backyard. He has like tented buildings that you know. So it's like all musty and dirty, and things are getting wet, and moldy, and it's like these people just have so much stuff that they can't store it all, and they don't want to pay for real storage, so they literally store it in these. Anyway, stuff can get pretty gross in these places, right? So I go there, I'm digging, and pretty quick into this dig, I realized there's some kind of bug infestation in these pants.
Really?
He had bins and bins, and I was actually cracking the bins that he would buy from the auctions, because he was buying from the auctions, and they would come in these sealed boxes from the military, but he didn't care because he knew what they were, so he just stored these boxes. I was cracking into the direct from the military boxes of army pants and shirts. Anyway, the bug infestation was these things called stink bugs. They were like a beetle.
Ooh.
And I'm telling you, man, they were in everything. I had to go through each piece. And the thing was, I was there. I couldn't leave. I didn't want to make that trip be a bust. So wow. I had to salvage it, and I had to try to shake these bugs out of all these garments. I mean, obviously we didn't get everything out, and we ended up getting complaints about having bugs in these garments, and we had to pay for these huge dry cleaning bills for all this product. And
wow,
it was a nightmare. But those were my 2 huge experiences on military.
Wow. Well, anyway, I did some military in those days, and it was very popular, especially the German field jackets, German packs, German Bundeswehr tops. Remember the Bundeswehr tops?
Yeah.
They were tank tops, white with the German emblem, and then the BDU pants for Germany. They were called. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I used to buy tons of them and dye them, but that was after. That was D&D salvage. I have a question for you about German military, because you know, were you buying German military back in 1970? Or was it yeah. Okay. Oh yeah.
So World War II was 1940 to 46-ish era. 44.
40, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. 45.
45.
Actually, the war started as early as 37, 38. The Nazis were invading all kinds of places.
Yeah.
But the big guys like America and Germany and Britain and France. France got invaded in 41 or 40. And they were taken over for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I heard Hitler was in power from the early 30s. It wasn't until like 37. Yes. My neighbor told me it was 1937 that the German parliament buildings got burnt down, and the Nazi party used that as a push to take over control. Yeah. And that's when Hitler went off the rails and started everything. But my question is about the clothing. So obviously you have German military clothing, and then you have Nazi military clothing.
I didn't find any Nazi.
The whole time you were in military, you never found any Nazi?
Now, maybe I had some Nazi, but I didn't know it. I wasn't really in the vintage military business, so I probably wasn't really looking. So some lucky son of a gun might have got it mixed in with the grade that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah,
So
and I mean, lucky or not, who knows? But it's interesting to me that. So okay. So I'm just trying to understand it. So that period of Nazi, right, was like that World War II period. So was all German military clothing coming out of Germany at that time Nazi clothing, or was like the whole military during World War II was Nazi? Correct.
correct for Germany.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's interesting to me that it's really hard to find that stuff because that's a huge period. That's a huge war. They would have made
Because they
tons of
burnt
stuff.
it. They burnt it.
And who burnt it? Who was responsible? Was it when the Nazis got taken over?
It. The Allies.
Yeah, they didn't want. They were like, we want to erase this memory.
Everybody burnt it. Everybody burnt it. Communists burnt it. The Russians burnt it. The Allies burnt it. The Germans burnt it. There was a lot of Germans that hated Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, there was an underground resistance to Hitler. The French especially burnt it. They hated him. Yeah. There was always an underground France, but France kind of copped out. I mean, I've read a lot of books lately. I'm reading one right now called The Daughter. It's about two daughters and their mom in France during World War II. And it's really interesting.
So the German military that you're getting would have been
60s and 70s.
60s and 70s. Okay.
Yeah, it was way after. Yeah, so I got in the rag area. We did very well. I was living at home. I was going with a local girl, and then I finally got a place in Raymond, New Hampshire, my own apartment, and this girl kind of moved in with me, and it was fun, and I was the hippie king for a while, and da-da-da-da. So then, but I was in conversation with this guy, Marty, who had been a really good friend of mine, and he sold me jewelry at Xanadu. For all the years I had Xanadu, he would come up every week and fill out my jewelry for me. And I became really close with him. And then there was a guy I met down at the Miami Pop Festival named Jack Wisehout. And Jack was there with his wife, and he had one kid, and he was a leather maker. And we really hit it off, Jack and I. And remember, after the Miami Pop, what did I do? I hung out in Miami for almost a month with Artie Buffum. And I saw Jack a few times, and we became quite good. So I don't know how it really happened, but I called Marty, and I said, look, I found some great sources for used clothing. There's nobody selling used clothing to all the hippie shops in North America. It sells like crazy. I want to start a wholesale business called the Rag Machine. And and so I went to this guy, Ken Feldman, who was running my store. He was my manager. And I said, Ken, how would you like to buy the Rag Machine? I mean, the Rag Barrier, because I'm leaving. So Marty took his family, and Jack took his family, and we all moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I sold the Rag Barrier to my manager, Ken Feldman.
So was this the first of the businesses of your many that you sold?
Yes, because all the others, my bookstore and the book co-op and the grass is greener and Xanadu, I closed them all.
Okay, this is important to note. Dave, my dad, loves to sell businesses, loves to move on, loves to end one chapter and start a new chapter. Now, what's the longest you ever had a store? What's the longest you ever stuck with one company?
Oh, boy. Not very long. I'm an ADD maniac. I don't know what it was. I think I was always trying to prove to my dad that I was okay. So as soon as I was successful at a business, I just kind of got rid of it and did another one to prove to him. I think it was underlying. I was always trying
So
to.
you kept having to reprove yourself to him with a new business?
Well, now that I'm old, I'm 76, I can look back and I'm seeing a counselor and we talk about it. And the other day we really got into it. And yeah, I think, that was something I was always trying to prove myself to the old man.
And he probably never acknowledged it, or did he?
Never, never. I made more money than George before I even finished college. I made more money than he made his whole time in business.
Yeah.
It was sick. But he never said anything.
But that doesn't fill the void. It doesn't make
No, because he was a World War II vet, and I'm sure he came out of it screwed up a little. He never saw combat. He was a pharmacist. And when I didn't want to go to the Vietnam War, I was a horse's ass. He was pissed. He couldn't believe I wasn't going to go. And, so we had that friction. And, yeah, pretty fucked up.
And your brother didn't go either. None of you boys went.
Well, my brother was 4 years younger, so he didn't have to go. And he was in college, but he was just going into college when they took away the deferment. I lucked out. I told you that. Yeah. I drew that high number, so I didn't have to go. But I probably would have went. I was probably going to go just to tell my father to fuck himself. But I didn't. So here I am talking to you.
That would have been a whole different life story. So do you remember this transaction? Did this guy, was it a clean, give me a few grand, here's the store? Was it a pay me out over a couple years? Or?
It was a clean. He got a buddy of his who owned a pizza, about 3 or 4 pizza joints in town. They bought it together, and he had it for quite a while, man. He did very well. And I took off, and then
do you have any memory of what the price was?
I probably sold it for 10 grand.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was 1970 or 70.
Yeah. No, I'm just wondering. It's interesting. I've yet to sell a business.
Really? Well, you're yet to have a lot of businesses. You mostly had one business.
Yeah, I've had a couple, and I have a few now that are different businesses, but I've yet to sell one off. Which
business did you have before you had the vintage business?
Well, I was partner with Mike for my first store when we did hammocks with you, and we had that store in Whistler.
You had a hammock store?
We had a hammock / vintage /
what was it called?
Head in the Sand.
Oh God, I don't remember.
That was the summer of about 2005, maybe. I don't know, 2005. I had a store, and we did sell Snap, and we sold some vintage, and we sold the hammocks, and we sold sunglasses, and we sold bathing suits. It was just a summer. I did it for 2 months. I took over a ski rental place in Whistler. You remember, but
how'd you do?
I mean, at the time, I was so stoked because we were doing, we'd have $1,000 days, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. There's money coming in. I felt like I was rolling in it, and I felt like I had hit a niche and figured it out. So it was cool, man.
Mike who? Which Mike was that?
Mike Hart. He was a snowboard buddy who we filmed movies together and stuff back in the day, and he was a great guy, and he brought me under his wing and kind of put me in his crew for snowboarding in those early Whistler days. And then you hit me up and you were like, Drew, you got to sell some hammocks, man. I'm killing it. Take some hammocks. And then me and Mike, we bought hammocks from you.
How'd you do?
And we did festivals. I mean, the festival thing is a very hit or miss. Once in a blue moon, you do great, and then you do shit, and then you do great again, and then you go to one and it rains, and then, you go to one and it's great again, and it's so inconsistent, but it can be good. And I sold them around town. I remember back in that day, this was, probably 2003, 2004, and I would just put posters up around town, and I'd say, I called him the Hammock King. I was the Hammock King of Whistler. Yeah. And the Hammock King, But my phone number, the little phone number sheets where you tear off the bottom phone number and you just
Yeah. You had
because
that.
we didn't have cell phones back then, so maybe some people did, but it was still early, so you took away the phone number, and I would do that, and I would get a call, maybe 10 times a week, and I would drive around Whistler and deliver hammocks to people.
Hey, what year did you graduate from Vermont Academy?
98.
So right after that, you went directly to West, don't you?
No.
Where'd you go at 98?
I moved back to Vermont. I came home for the summer, and then I moved back to Vermont with my friends from VA, and I worked at Stratton as a snowboard instructor. And I don't know if I've ever told this story on air before, but you remember that was the year that I got fourth in the U.S. Open.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the U.S. Open is very end of the season. It's like the end of March at Stratton, Vermont. So, but that same day, we had been raided by the police. My house.
That's right, and I bailed you out.
My house got raided by the police because my landlord came in and he found us growing dope in the closet.
That's right.
I think we did talk about this a little bit, but anyway, so just to recap this story, I go to Stratton for qualifiers for U.S. Open. I qualify, so I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to finals. The finals are at nighttime underneath the lights, like a big party. This is like the 1998 glory days. Actually, it was 99 at that point because it was the end of the season, 1999. Come home to a warrant stapled to the door of the house that says the, Brattleboro County or whatever it was, Southern Vermont State Police had come. They seized all the marijuana. We basically have warrants for all your guys' arrests who lives at the house. You need to come to the police station and make a statement. We're like, fuck, what do we do?
And he called me.
I didn't call you then. I didn't call you yet. So then after I got that note, we said, we're not going to the police station right now. This was like a Saturday or Sunday. We went back to the mountain. I competed in the snowboard contest that night. Got fourth place at the U.S. Open.
Probably would have got you. I was there. You would have probably got first if you weren't so freaked out with the warrant.
Yeah, well, who knows about that? And then we were like, we can't get in any more trouble, so let's have a party tonight. They're already arresting us. Let's have a fucking huge party at the house. So then we go and we invite everybody from the whole Stratton contest back to our house to have a huge party. It goes crazy. We had like 200 people at the house. I was so blacked out drunk at one point, but I don't even remember it, but it got so crazy. There was fights. The door got ripped off. The front door literally got ripped off the house during one of the fights. Cops come back to the house. That night, and we're like, shit. But we're already all getting arrested anyway. So, but then I was the one who had the lease, so they slapped me that night again with another charge of providing alcohol to minors because I was the guy who owned the lease to the house. And I was also a minor, which I didn't even know. If you're a minor, you can still be providing alcohol to minors, which is ridiculous. Because I was only 19 or 18 at the time. Another funny part of that night was, I forget who it was, but one of my other high school buddies was at the house, and the cops show up. So he runs outside. He's got a big bag of dope, and he throws it into a snowbank or buries it in a snowbank or something because he's like, I'll come back and get it, tomorrow when the cops are gone. And anyway, nothing happens. The night ends. I mean, I get another charge. I probably got another ticket. So I was basically summoned to show up at the cop station the next day. And then the next day, everyone's scrambling around trying to find this guy's bag of dope in the snowbank that I don't think we ever ended up finding this bag of weed. But yeah, that was still to this day one of the craziest experiences of my life. And then, yeah, so you had to come. I went back to Canada, and then I had to come back to court three times.
Did Ricky come up? Ricky Heifetz, my brother?
No, Ricky never represented me, but Ricky got one of his other lawyer partners or somebody to represent us, or me.
And you got off.
And yeah, I remember you had to pay $5,000 for the lawyer.
Yeah,
Thanks, Dad.
$5,000. I
Thanks, Dad.
remember 5,200 US.
Yeah. And so another part of that story, which is fucked up, so I had 5 roommates. I was the main leaseholder. So basically all the other 4 roommates got off scot-free because they couldn't pin shit on them because they weren't named on the lease of the house, right?
Wow.
But I was named on the lease of the house. And they tried to kind of like get everybody, but you know, the law is a funny thing. Like if they can't pin it on you, nobody was home at the time when they came in, all these different things, they couldn't really pin it on anyone. Plus, I won't say any names, but one of my roommates' brother was a cop in Long Island. So, you know, basically the cop brother, to get his younger brother, who was my roommate, off the hook, just basically spoke to the police and said, hey man, like I'm a cop, you know, cop to cop, like my brother wasn't the guy. And they let him off scot-free. And basically the cop said it was all Drew. So now I got this cop to cop thing happening between these people, and they're saying it's all me, even though the guy didn't even fucking know me or come to the house ever or whatever.
Did you get fined?
No. So luckily I got off. I got off because it was really, the whole scenario of the closet operation was so minuscule. It was so shitty. Even though the prosecutor said that their aim for that prosecution against me was to try to put me in jail. But we got off, and I got I got probation with like counseling.
Where was Jesse? Because he graduated before you.
He was living in Toronto. I remember the counseling was so bullshit too. I went to like 2 or 3 counseling meetings, and it's like they're like, "What are you being counseled for? For smoking weed? Like what the fuck?" And I was like, to be honest, I don't even really smoke weed because I wasn't smoking a lot of weed at that point. And they were like, it was just so dumb.
Wow. So let's get back to the rag barrier.
Yeah, so you sold it. Now you're moving to the rag machine.
I sold the rag barrier. I've been in conversation with Marty and Jack quite a bit. And we decided we're all going to move to Pennsylvania, Allentown. So I went down there, and at this point, I had met Pam. I met Pam Jones, who was, this was the weirdest thing. I'm closing up the Xanadu in 1970. I think it was 70. And I was done. And she shows up with this girl, Lisa Gorelli, in a cab. And I don't know how she found out, but she said, I understand you're going to sell your shop here. Anyway, we hit it off, and she moved down to Pennsylvania with me.
But you just said, was she living with you during the rag barrier time too?
No.
Oh, so you kind of met and then kind of you never were together, and then we
were together a little, and then she went back to her life in Sharon, Pennsylvania, and we were all communicating, and somehow I went back with her, and she moved to.
Okay, so then you guys, so then you're in contact this whole time, and then she moved down to Allentown with you.
Yeah.
And why Allentown? What was the choice there?
Well, because here's the thing. Allentown was a perfect area for sourcing. It was close to New York City. It was close to Philly. It was close to New Jersey. It was close to Delaware. And there were lots and lots of dealers in that area. So we wanted to locate in a good place because we were going to be the wholesaler. We were going to buy graded goods and then rework them like you do and sell them at the boutique show. At that time.
But you also sold them as is. It wasn't all reworked.
Most of it was.
It was like, as is. Yeah, like 90%.
No, not 90, 80%.
80%, 20. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I just want to, I don't want people to be confused that you were like 100% reworking because your main business for that time was selling secondhand clothing. Good thing to note here is that like you uprooted your life and you moved basically for a business opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I think that is commendable and admirable. And I think more people out there need to fucking get their priorities straight. And if you think you can go create a life for yourself or create a business for yourself that in turn creates a life for yourself, and you have to uproot and move, fucking go for it.
Well, in those days, we didn't have computers, no cell phones. I mean, everything was face to face, hand to hand, nose to nose. So that's how I did it. I had a truck, a big truck, and yeah, I bought this truck and I drove the truck down, and Pam picked up Pam and we went to Allentown and she met me there. We got an apartment together. Marty rented a house. Jack rented a house, and we found a warehouse in Kutztown. We found a great warehouse in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. It was very reasonable. It was a college town. And yeah, we started the rag machine. We had over 20 women sewing. They were doing buttons and repairs, making shorts, making bib shorts, making all kinds of stuff. And it was right in the middle of, it was like a Mennonite area. Mennonites, and they were great sewers. So Pam ran the sewing machine, the sewing room, and the repairs and the alterations and the kind of Frankie stuff. And then Jack ran the warehouse. Marty ran sales. Marty was the salesperson, sales manager. And I was the procurement guy. I drove around in the truck with a couple of my cronies that we hired and filled it up with rags.
Which is the funnest job.
I loved it, man. I loved it. I was like in my, mid to late 20, mid 20s, 25, 26. And yeah, 27. And it was great. And we killed it. We went to the boutique shows. We went to the Namsby show. We went to the Magic show. And we were the first vintage clothing wholesalers. And a lot of guys bought from us. I'll never forget.
So, okay, keep going.
The first real big guy, name was Jimmy Jones or Jimmy, I don't remember the company, but it was a straight clothing company that was very hip. I don't remember the name of the company right now. But we were at the McAlpin Hotel. And then the McAlpin Hotel was the boutique show, and every dealer had a room. They closed the hotel down for 4 or 5 days, and they had the boutique show. You rented a room, and we had the rag machine room. And this guy, Jimmy Jones, I think it was Jimmy Jones, came in, and he loved what we were doing. And they had 100 stores and malls. And he gave us, in the back of each of his stores, I can't remember the name, but they were men's clothing stores, men's hip stores, bell bottoms and, that kind of stuff. And he set up a section in the back of all the stores called the rag machine. And we had, like you do, Urban, which I did later. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
So you had, so that's early
70s.
Vintage in clothing, in new clothing stores, which has always, I guess, been a thing since those days here and there.
We were the first. We were the first.
There was nobody else wholesaling used clothing at that point?
Nobody else when I started.
What about in the West Coast? There was nothing equivalent on the West Coast?
No. When we went out to do the San Francisco boutique show, which was about a year or so after we started with the New York boutique show, which they had a couple of times a year, and the Namsby show, which they had a couple of times a year, which is the men's clothing show, and the Magic show, which they had twice a year as well out in Las Vegas. And yeah, it was sick, man. It was great. So
did you have customers on the West Coast that early?
No, we had customers everywhere. We picked them up at the boutique show. And then Marty was really a good salesman because that was his specialty. He had a jewelry company and he would sell his own jewelry, and he would import it or make it or buy it from someplace. And I think he was working with his father-in-law, his wife's father had this jewelry company, and Marty was the sales manager. So he had lots of experience. He did great. He found all kinds of people, and they would come picking. Where it was rarely a day where we didn't have somebody picking in our warehouse.
But you were also packing and shipping orders, right?
That was our main business, packing and shipping.
So do you remember back to some of those good years? So how many years was the rag machine running?
Well, I was there for 2 years. And the problem with me only being there for 2 years was that Jack and Pam never got along. Marty and Pam got along great, but Jack and Pam never got along. And I was living with Pam. And so, yeah, we just decided, Pam and I were going to leave. So the boys paid me some money and gave me 200 bales of clothing, and I moved up to Toronto. That's when I started the Farmers Rag Market with Pam. But we were at the rag machine for about 2.5 years.
And do you remember, say, like, what the yearly sales were for any of those years?
Oh my God, we did good. I mean, we probably did $300,000 or $400,000. And in those days, $300,000 or $400,000 was like several $1 million.
Yeah, I would imagine like $100,000 in 1970s, like $1 million today.
I mean, we were selling. I think our, Levi jean was $3.50 wholesale, $3.50. I think denim jackets were like $3 or $4. We were selling Western shirts for $1.50, $2.
And I guess to buy a brand new Levi's jean back then, wholesale is like $10, or
yeah, $10. They were retailing for $18 to $22 for a 501. Yeah.
So you moved to Toronto.
Yeah, well, we packed up in the meantime, I had bought a barn. I was visiting my buddy Ken Bray. We didn't mention this, but I was visiting my buddy Ken Bray one time after Woodstock. I met Ken Bray. He was selling jewelry in the Bindi Bazaar, Woodstock. There were about, 15 or 20 people doing different stuff at the Bindi Bazaar. And Ken and I became really good friends. One day I was visiting Ken. I don't know who I was with. Maybe I was alone. And there was an auction in town. What town was that? It wasn't Kutztown. It was Sharpsville. No, not Sharpsville. Anyway, there was this town.
It was an auction. What kind of auction?
It was a barn. They were auctioning a barn and an acre and a half of property in the middle of town.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of money because I had.
And you were married to Pam by this point?
No, I was not.
But you did marry Pam?
I did marry Pam, yeah.
Okay.
No, I wasn't married to Pam. I think I got married to Pam during the rag machine. No, after.
Well, you're saying you bought a barn after you left the rag machine? Or before?
No, before the rag machine.
Did you live in the barn?
I did live in the barn. Now, I don't know if I bought the barn after the rag machine. I bought the barn visiting Ken, but I never did much with it. And, yeah.
Okay. So,
and I was living in the barn. At some point, I was living in the barn with Pam. I think that was after the rag machine, before we moved to Toronto.
Okay. Did Pam move to Toronto?
Yes.
How long before she dumped your ass? Or you dumped her ass? Pam is not my mom, people, just so you know.
Yeah. Pam and I split up, I think the second year of the Farmers Rag Market.
Okay.
We split
before
up.
You met Mom?
Before I met Mom, yeah.
So you were in Toronto 2 years before you met Mom? At least?
Yep.
Okay.
You know how I met Mom?
No, well, I want to know, and I probably have heard it, but we're going to end it, and we're going to go to we're going to start fresh. We're doing a fresh Toronto episode.
I haven't even really told you much about the rag machine. I mean, the rag machine was a trip, man.
Well, let's talk more about rag machine then, because we need the whole move to Canada is a whole talk in itself.
Yeah, the rag machine was fun. I mean, we had fun. We did a lot of stuff. I went and found a lot of sources, man. I had more sources. And then when I left the rag machine, I was kind of pissed off. So I
Why?
did, because I didn't really want to leave, but I had to leave because Pam and Pam and Jack they were at each other's throat all the time.
Why didn't you just tell Pam to go get a job and leave you guys alone at the rag machine?
Because I guess at the time I was in love with Pam, and she was more important to me than the business.
Yeah, but what something you've learned that at least something I've learned in my days is,
Don't work with your wife, right?
yeah, don't fucking work with your wife. You can't you can't be on an intimate relationship and a boss. I mean, maybe if you're equal partners and you can have a really smooth working relationship, I've seen it work sometimes. But if you have to be in a boss position, then in a lover position, does not work.
Never works. So anyway, Pam was working for Marty, Jack, and I. She was an employee, and it didn't work out.
Give us some of the fun times at the rag machine. You got to go out buying. That's your love. I know that's your love because
it was fun.
Even to this day, if I got
to hang out in New York City a lot.
Yeah, and how did that relationship go? And how did those guys like your buying?
They loved it. I mean, I was the best buyer that ever lived. That's how I met Scott Ravelson. I was in Boston going to Roxbury and the suburbs of Boston. There were a bunch of sources there. And I found out that there was this kid at BU, Boston University, that had rented a room. And in that room, he was selling Levi jeans to students. I went in and I walked into this room in Harvard Square, and there's Scott Ravelson. And I said, "Hey, man, what are you doing? You're not a customer of mine. Where the hell did you get the blue jeans?" Because there was nobody out there, right? And he said, "What are you talking about, motherfucker?" And I said, "You little son of a bitch. If you don't buy from me, I'm going to put you out of bed." And I said, I mean, we became friends. He's one of my closest friends now. You know that. And
yeah, I know. He told that story too. We saw him at Whitney's wedding, which is my sister's wedding, 2 years ago or something. And he was telling that story. It's such a funny story, man. So where was he getting?
He was buying from Lou Fetter. He found Lou Fetter in Brooklyn, and he was buying just jeans from Lou Fetter. And he's got started by buying jeans from a guy that I used to work for me, another guy who worked for me. I can't remember his name. He was my neighbor when I was a kid, and he worked for me at the Rag Barrier. And he, I think, carried on with Ken Feldman, and they sold. This guy quit, and he got some jeans somehow from Ken and sold them to Scott. And that's how Scott got started.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
So, yeah, you guys started as mortal enemies, but soon became best pals.
Yeah, right. Not soon, but after a while.
How soon? How soon after?
A few years later, when he...
So, like this whole, fuck you, I'm going to end your business, that was a real vendetta that went on for 2 years?
No, I went out for a little while. Not two, but a couple of years. He never bought from me, though.
Yeah, because he's like, fuck you. You can't fucking run this game. I'm going to show you who runs this game.
And then he found his own source, and he and his brother opened up the Pennsylvania company and became my competitors.
But they were never big wholesalers, were they?
They did a lot of retail, and no, they weren't big wholesalers.
Yeah,
no.
So it's a different business. It was,
but they ended up getting in the dye clothing business. They dyed a lot of tees, a lot of pants, a lot of sweatshirts in weird colors, and they did okay. They had a booth at the boutique show.
Yeah, mostly so their company. I don't know if it's still there, but what's it called?
The Pennsylvania Company.
Pennsylvania Company, and
the PA Company.
They had stores in Rhode Island, right?
No, and mostly Massachusetts. Massachusetts.
Yeah, had a big store by the beach, right, and stuff.
They had stores down on the Cape, They had a store in Harvard Square in Boston. They had a couple stores in Boston, and one on the Cape. I think they had 3 or 4 stores.
And yeah, again, Scott Rowson and his brother, they did really well, and they were also another company that always did. They had their own private label. They made clothing.
That's right.
The PA company clothing, and they always sold vintage, but were very specific about it. Very specific with the
very
cuts
particular.
they wanted. Very particular, yeah. But yeah, he did very well for himself. Was he buying buildings the whole time and putting his stores in the bought buildings?
No, he didn't start buying buildings till after he and his brother kind of split up and sold the company. He didn't even sell the company. He could have sold the company for millions.
So, we're talking, he wasn't buying buildings till he was in his 50s or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Late 40s, 50s. Yeah. None of the buildings he had the PA
gives me
company
hope. It gives me hope.
he became a trillionaire. He's still buying buildings. He's crazy.
Yeah, okay, so this is the main business model my dad promotes, even though he never did it. This is the do what I say, not do what I do business model of Dave Heifetz.
Yeah.
Buy your building for your store. Pay your mortgage with your store profits. Instead of paying rent to somebody else, pay down that mortgage with the rent that you would be typically paying to somebody else, and then just rinse and repeat. Right. And the other bonus of doing that business model is you get to, if you own the building personally and put your store in it, you can actually take personal profit off your store's rent on top of the mortgage payment, which now, instead of taking a salary, you're making personal profit off your own company's rent, which is super G. So
yeah, right. So anyway, listen, Mom's making dinner, so I think I have to go.
Okay. Okay. So that was a good episode. We kind of bounced around, but we are now, got to remember this. Write this down. Put it in the memory banks. We're moving into the Toronto episode. How you met Mom, how you broke up with Pam, and this
the Farmer's Rag Market.
Farmer's Rag Market.
Dirty dog
dud. And this is great because this leads. There's a period. We're gonna get into a period of Toronto, which is until I was 4 years old. So we're talking 73 to 84, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a 10-year period in Toronto, and then there's going to be another 10 to 20-year period when you lived in Niagara, and then there's another period when Dave moves back to America, to Vermont, that we have to talk about.
Oh yeah, Greener Valley, Greener Pastures,
which I helped build that store.
That was great.
So there's lots more to cover. There's lots more Dave-isms. But let's leave the viewers with a challenge for the week.
What's the challenge?
You tell me, Dave.
Oh, all right. Here it is. Be happy, never crappy.
Yeah, that's not a challenge. That's a motto.
It's the motto.
So we need a challenge, Dad. What have you learned? Give them a challenge. What have you learned through COVID? What have you learned about yourself through counseling, through COVID? Come on. Challenge the people to better themselves, or
take a look at why you do what you do. What are the patterns that you keep repeating? Now, it's not about the patterns. It's about the why. Where are those patterns coming from? And I just recently realized a lot of my patterns are coming from trying to make my dad finally say, well done. And it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen because my dad's been dead for 25, 30 years. What, 25 years, Drew? Grandpa?
I don't know. I mean, I can remember I was like,
we go to Florida.
I was like 6. So, yeah, it's 25 years.
At least.
I was like 6 or 8. So 20, yeah, something like that. It's a while.
More than that, 30 years then.
Yeah, okay. So,
let it go.
This challenge.
Leave the past in the past.
It's to acknowledge, it's acceptance of that, of accepting why you do what you do, and maybe once you can acknowledge why you do what you do, maybe realizing that fuck it and do what you want to do. Do what you want to do, not what you think you need other people to accept you by doing.
Exactly right. Okay, world.
I probably have a lot of searching in that realm myself. Maybe I'm just waiting for you to tell me I do a great job, but you do tell me that all the time anyway.
I tell you that all the time. You guys, you and your brother, geez, I've never been a prouder dad. I mean, and not just because of your silly business. You have a great kids and you're good friends and you've got lots of people in your life and you're healthy and you both have hobbies. You're a snowboarder and you're a skateboarder and you love to take out the kids on bikes and fish and
yeah. Everybody, you were always the number one biggest fan when I was snowboarding.
I loved it. You were great.
You were.
And then Jesse does the same thing. Jesse, he's got that great music hobby, man. Yeah. And he gets acknowledged, man. He gets awards and he does albums and he goes to clubs and DJs and he loves it. So you guys each got a gig and you get along great.
Okay. Thank you, Dad. And I appreciate it. This was fun. This was fun to connect. Pound it.
See you later.
Here, we gotta tell the listeners to like this video. Can you do that?
Oh yeah. Will you like this video so we can, the Heifetz boys can, carry on. Do another one.
Carry on. And we didn't even talk about masks. But listen, guys, Dave is selling masks, really high quality masks.
Oh, the best.
He's looking basically for reps. He wants reps. You can make a ton of money. He just needs help. He'll send you a package. He'll send you all the material. He'll send you samples. You go out, you get orders, and you make money. It's super simple.
Go on Life is Precious. One word. lifeisprecious.ca. lifeisprecious.ca.
Put that down there. lifeisprecious.ca. We'll put that link down there. Check it out. Help Dave out. Let's go. Sell some masks.
I'm selling nothing in the U.S., man. Nothing. I'm doing great here in BC, but I can't go out and do a lot of selling.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like Dave just said in all these episodes, it's like his business model is nose to nose. He's not tech savvy. It took us a half an hour to get this recording happening before this episode. So it's not for lack of sellability. It's for lack of Dave is stuck home because he's in his 70s. He's in the highest risk bracket of COVID. So he needs help, people that can go out, people that understand the internet, people that can go solicit orders. It's simple. It's super, super simple. I have a huge company to run. I can't spend my time doing it right now. Get involved. Help Dave make money. Help Dave help you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Thank you. I'll try to get episode 6 of the history of the vintage clothing business up and out the door sooner than later because I know you guys appreciate it. And I'm excited for the next couple episodes because it's getting more into my period of life and the period of life that I have memories of. And there's wicked stories because I actually have, I'm going to get some other guests on here as well. I can talk about Dave and Dave's life. But, as we get further along, I worked with Dave. I helped him build stores. Jesse did too. So we can kind of give our perspective on things. And there's just so much more to talk about. As always, thanks to the Patreon members. Thanks for supporting. If you want to support, I truly do appreciate it. You can start as low as $5 a month and you get lots of bonus content. I'm going to be dropping some podcast merch probably coming up here pretty soon. And other things. You can if you sign up to the mid-level on the Patreon, you get access to our Facebook group, and you can review all the old content that we posted there, where there's actually a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff you can check out there. So if this podcast teaches you stuff, if you learn something from it, if the videos I post teach you stuff, please support. Very, very much appreciated. And that is it. I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks always for tuning